Is the Incredible Hulk a smashing good time, or should we smash it out of existence? Welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of The Incredible Hulk. Was it good, bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy, subscribe and already so you don't miss on any of my upcoming MCU reviews that will be leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine as we talk about the love of cinema and the MCU. But going right into the synopsis. After a science experiment that goes wrong forces Bruce Banner into hiding, he must discover an antidote that will help him with the cure, while the military is out to get him, trying to get him to be used for the military as a weapon. But there's new threats that arise as he goes back into civilization. And starting with the positives, I have a fondness for the character that gives me a biased insight into the get-go. While I'm not familiar with the comics by any means, I'm familiar with people that have talked about it, and just the general difference and divide between the Beast and the Man that Hulk can be as a character. And Louis Leterrier is a great director for what he provides out of this, what his attempts for this film, that watching behind the scenes was a good time to be had. Edward Norton was a great pick, as he is great and knows Hulk, loves Hulk as a kid, reading the comics, and while he was hesitant on joining in on the film, he eventually became in awe, and once he commits to a role, he works with the directors and everything that goes about that makes his role that much more special, brought special facial acting that they stretch out, that actually is him being the Hulk on the camera within the CGI by its own stretch, and what that all brings is a rather good time. There's some good final action bites, and what you get out of the investigation and Hulk being on the run, or Bruce Banner being that character, having to go through different situations that problems arise as he has to figure out the cure to what is going on with what the science experiment that went wrong, that every time he gets angry and a certain heartbeat that goes level, he turns into a Hulk. And what that all brings for this film as a whole just elevates the tension of the film, because the one scene they introduce him, it becomes nearly like a horror movie by just the introduction that presents it well and brings out certain scenes in a certain tone that matches what it should be, and what all the different scenes that play out have their own substance that provides something that makes it worthwhile, makes the film make sense for all the bits and pieces that are working in each and every scene. And you're getting multiple different settings, because this is intended to be Hulk on the run, trying to go across different places in order to find an antidote while the military is after him. And just what we get out of Edward Norton, as well as his girlfriend chemistry, what they have between Bruce Banner and her, it makes sense. You're provided enough to really get the gist of everything that's going on. And then also the father of the girl, the military general, goes about the own commands, being a strict father and not necessarily connected with his daughter anymore, while also being that sort of intermixed with the interference between Bruce Banner and his girlfriend. What that all plays out goes about different small conflicts that can have their own little bits and pieces that elevates the film a bit more for what you're getting. Edward Norton is great as the Hulk, he is great as Bruce Banner, and just what that all pulled off brings out some great fights. And having Blonsky added to the mix, he's supposed to be a Russian warrior in the comics, but for when the end of the Cold War is done within this timeline, they changed him to be American, and so his role still fits. He's going sort of into retirement as a soldier, and so what you're getting from this film, you have the proper motive that gets him enough to try and stop Banner, and being able to just be that much more aggressive, but also have his own motive to go that much more into his role, and then bringing out the Abomination that brings out a great final battle for what I just enjoy for the nature that has all real effects for the final battle. Those were all real cars, all real explosions, that was carefully placed out, but works out for what the film has to justify as a whole. And going into the mix of this, there's things between Bruce Banner as well as his girlfriend that just doesn't always fit a proper tone, how it's flowing with the nature of the film. I get the side support character and how she is intermixing, and it becomes a motive for Hulk in where he is going and supporting someone that is almost used as a device, as a character that moves Hulk into his own motivation. And also there's the side boyfriend character to his girlfriend that sort of intermix a different complication to the film that isn't too much of an interference, but having that boyfriend to that girl, Elizabeth, just doesn't have the right vibe that jives all the time for the nature of her having to leave Bruce Banner and then having to leave him because she thought Bruce Banner was gone for good. And so just what that love triangle sort of works out to be, it's not strong enough to show what all this other boyfriend's intentions are, where he's come from, what we get out of his character. It's very shallow. I'm not saying we should get a ton from him, but there's certain motives or attachments to Elizabeth that are questionable for what we're getting from the complete look at what we're getting out of the film as a whole. That leaves some things empty-handed for what we're getting. And while I can compliment the combination between Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk for what their own worth is apart from each other, their combination of the Man and Beast, the Divide, and seeing Edward Norton having a true role that works, the writing is just not fully committing to the divide between Man and Beast, the inner struggle within itself that could really elevate the film that much for the trauma he's going through, wanting to be one over the other, or just having a duality that just doesn't go all the way. And I put it in the mix because it doesn't necessarily ruin the film, but it does take it back a notch just because you're not getting the full capacity of what the character can bring to the film as a whole, for the nature of the duality of Man and Beast that is put into one, and that has been translated to comic and other films and other shows better, but not necessarily all the way within this film on its own. Which leaves me right into the negatives, which is where I feel this film is trying to juggle a bit too much. I know there's a connection with the girlfriend, how she used is as a character device, as a motive for the Hulk to be that much stronger, to push certain things that the military is pushing on him, trying to capture him, because the Hulk wouldn't necessarily be as much without Elizabeth to be that pull out of the struggles and out of the problems that is all pulling in it, which can be a little bit a negative downside on the character of Elizabeth being just used as a plot device to bring him out of his struggles, rather than her being her own standalone character in her own full. And so what that goes about a little bit of a mixed tone, which flows with a mixed tone throughout the story, just getting all these different small little problems that arise that flows with the nature of what you're expecting out of a spy chase sort of idea of Hulk on the run across country, across the road, and into different countries. That introduces different settings that's good for its own nature, but it goes into maybe a little bit too much, where the beginning of the film introduces us through the credits with his backstory that sort of fumbles its mess a little bit too much because of the nature of what it's trying to attempt to show what we should be paying attention to. But if it's your first time watching, you may not know anything that's going on, why this certain things matter, if it's supposed to foreshadow something in the future when it's ultimately meant to be the experiment that's gone wrong. And so knowing that the origin of the Hulk is just skipped over as a quick credits roll at the beginning just is a bad rap for what this film kind of tries to leave moving forward with the nature. It's not awful thing that wrecks the film, but knowing what it is showcasing and not always being able to pay attention to how it's showcasing it as a whole, it's either not trusting us with what the film is telling us later on, or it's trying to give a scapegoat for having a show of the origin, but not a full-out 30-minute extra runtime for what is going on. That wouldn't necessarily fit the film in the best manner, but there's not a great sacrifice that is being made here to brush over it, go right into where Edward Norton as Bruce Banner is on the run. That goes about a lot of different answers that is answered all throughout, that provides enough, but obviously it starts with that origin that's brushed over, and what we're getting from that goes about some mixed tones based on everything we have to learn along the way. It's certain information that turns things into different directions, and while I do generally enjoy the film and certain characters that all go on throughout because of my appreciation for scientist characters, as I'm an author that wrote a book with scientists in it, it just has its missed aspects along the way that throws things off into different directions, having Hulk that just doesn't fully commit to that duality. And while I have all these mixed elements, all these positive, overall, I have to rate The Incredible Hulk a simply 6.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments below what you would rate The Incredible Hulk. Is it good? Is it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Let me know all that. Make sure to like this video if you enjoy, subscribe if you're already so you don't miss out on any of upcoming MCU reviews as we prepare for Deadpool and Wolverine. And so that's just all. Make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.